want to win on DraftKings, right? Then the first thing you need to do is identify your locks of the week at each position. And we've done this for you. Let's start with Jalen Hurts in the quarterback position. He's 6,800 on DraftKings at Detroit. Jake, tell us why you're on him, man. This is a price that stood out to me right away, so I'm pumped we're talking about him first.
This is the perfect segue right into the don't overthink it. Like I'm looking for running quarterbacks. We know that. We always kind of look for that. And then potentially for hitting bonuses. While I don't necessarily think Hurts will hit the 300 or anything like that. It wouldn't shock me if he did. But this is the same conversation of years past of Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson and like all that. Yes, Kyler Murray is probably the only one in this conversation of like the Trey Lances of the world that gets to that 300 some odd bonus sometimes. But Jalen Hurts was regularly a top 3-4 scorer last year, and to open up this slate and look at it and be like, Jalen Hurts is what? Like, right. I don't know. Maybe they were thinking they were pricing Trey Lance, like because Jalen Hurts was already there with a struggling Devonta Smith as a rookie. You know, he had some nice games, but now you bring in AJ Brown. Now you have another year of this offense. Now you're facing the Detroit Lions defense like that. This one, to me, Joe, I looked at it and I said, this makes no sense. I'm just going to slam him. I'll slam him in my lineup naked or with an A.J. Brown stack.
Yeah, I don't think the addition of A.J. Brown can go understated. Like for what like a player like that of that type of talent does for an offense is completely insane. And we were playing Jalen Hurts because of the floor ceiling combo as it is last year, right? So this is like one of those plays where like we could be a few weeks, maybe even 1 week away from him being like one of the top 3 priced quarterbacks. The fact that we get him at this price in week 1, it's pretty easy to build around him at that point. Obviously, ownership kind of gets spread out on quarterback anyways. Like these are the things that we're going to continue to hammer home as the season goes on. But love the Jalen Hurts call, especially, I guess, even starting on the road, I guess, against Detroit. We expect Detroit to be a little bit better this year, right? But just from a fantasy perspective and a price perspective, like Jalen Hurts is a slam dunk. But what are your thoughts on Detroit? Do you think they will be better, or am I just kind of, still in the season-long weeds with, trying to get all my Amon-Ra St. Brown as possible?
I think that's the bigger thing. Is I think they're better on offense, but I don't know necessarily defense. You look up and down that roster, and there's not a lot of where. I mean, yes, you could argue on paper like maybe improved here or there, but I still think they're another year or two away from a defense being something we're worried about. Granted, this could change in season. And I talked about the adjusted points allowed. You know this, Joe. I referenced years ago. I don't remember if it was 2018, but it was somewhere around there where their Giants defense went from don't face the avoid them at all cost, and then it was exploit the living hell out of them in the second half of the season. And in that same season, it was the Lattimore season when Julio Jones was going to face the Saints at the end. And everybody's like, oh my God, you don't want Julio Jones. He plays them in weeks 15 and 17. And the Saints went from, oh my God, to exploit them too. Like it was, they both first, or maybe it was the opposite for the Giants, whatever what it was, they flipped in the season. So I don't want to panic too much about a defense, but it wouldn't shock me if there were one to be a little concerning about, but I'm definitely not concerned out of the gate.
Well, it makes them better, like basically a place to target if the offense is a little bit better. So I like that, actually, that we're expecting them to take a step in that direction. But if their defense is still bad, that's perfect for us. But let's move on to the running back position. We're going to keep this thing moving. We have 2 guys to talk about here. And the first one, Joe Mixon at home against Pittsburgh. He's 7,100. Again, another one of those prices that really stood out to me in week 1, especially in this spot at home. But tell us why Joe Mixon is going to be one of your anchors at the running back position.
As you said, the 7,100 price stood out to me. You're looking at a top 10 running back in play with the fact that it's a matchup that I'm not concerned about at all. There's 2 ways to look at it with Pittsburgh, and we're going to touch on the Bengals too later. Is he could have one where it goes sideways for them, and then Mixon's running out the clock. If you want to play that narrative, if you want to play the other narrative where Pittsburgh shocks us and Trubisky has one of his 4 touchdown games, which he's had 1 or 2 before, then the pace is going to keep up. And one of the things about Bengals is what we saw last year, one of the best offenses in the league, but that didn't mean throwing the ball 40 times a game because Joe Burrow is so efficient that Joe Mixon's still sprinkled in the mix. And I know he's not the highest pass catching running back in the world, but he gets involved enough, and he's going to be involved in the goal line area. I don't see how Mixon's not in the conversation as a top 5 or 6 play this week at price wise. And I think that's why, as you were mentioning it, I see that you have the run the Sims up and he's the number 1. That doesn't shock me on top of the board. And I think for good reason.
Yeah, the number 1 optimal rate player for the main slate on DraftKings this week is Joe Mixon. He's in the optimal lineup 18.9% of the time. So that's a pretty high number for this time of the year for sure. So we're going to keep an eye on Joe Mixon. I still think that a lot of people this week are going to try and jam in JT. They're going to try and jam in CMC, but you save a ton of salary if you do want to move down to that Joe Mixon area. So I'm in on that. I think that the cheaper side of running back is a little bit more interesting this week. I think there's some people that are going to go the Antonio Gibson route at 5,800. He's super cheap, but there's obviously a lot of narratives there we're going to have to sift through. But the guy that we're going to talk about on the cheaper end is someone that I think we've been talking about almost all offseason. We're talking about Damian Pierce. He's at home against this Indy team, but he's just 4,800. So tell us why you like Pierce a little bit more than Gibson, because I think that's going to be a big decision point for some people. I guess you're saving a decent amount of salary there as well. If he's 4,800, that's the crazy price tag.
So where I'll say that there's two ways to look at this. So I will say my backup plan, just so everybody knows, is Travis Etienne. I'm actually going the opposite way. I'm going Etienne and Gibson in that game because we're going to say it's a tease for that later too as well. But what I'll say to give the Etienne is because there's one outlier here that's the big play. It's Darius Shaquille, whatever he wants to go by Shaquille now. It's Darius Leonard is a game changer when it comes to the run game. Last year, the one game he missed against Arizona, Chase Edmonds went ham. He went nuts. And Kyler Murray was 3 for 90 rushing the ball or something ridiculous like that in that game.
Right.
So Darius Leonard now sounds like he's 50-50 and he might play. If he plays, I could see coming off Damien Pierce because he's the hot name, because he should be chalk, the free square, as people like to throw out, because he's so cheap and he won the job for the Texans. So I'll say if Darius Leonard's out there, I don't mind coming off him. If he's not, I just mentioned all the reasons. I wouldn't be scared of the Colts defense, and the volume is going to be there. There was never a fact in my mind that Mac was going to be involved, and as you saw, the team thought the same thing. They sent him to the practice squad, and then they brought him back. Whether or not he's a game day active, it's Damian Pierce's backfield. So if you get anybody that should be nearing 20 touches at this price point, it's just a hammer it. It's just hammer it home into your lineup, and it's a free square, as people like to throw out the name. So I love that. But again, I will say, because it is going to be the chalk play, that if Leonard plays, then I don't mind coming off Leonard for Travis Etienne instead.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And honestly, if you do go this route, it gives you the straight path to a CMC or a JT if you wanted to go that direction with the rest of your lineup. Jake, this is something that we're going to kind of seamlessly blend into our show. If there is a PrizePicks line that stands out to you, we are going to talk about it a little bit. So Damian Pierce, we like more than 49.5 rushing yards this week. I assume it's all the same caveats that you just mentioned, but tell us why you like that line in particular.
100% that, because if one thing that you have some concerns with Damien Pierce is how much in the passing game, because it'll be some like Rex Burkhead workload and that game goes. But at that point, I mean, 50 yards for a running back that's going to carry the ball 15 plus times, even if they're down, even if they're just, Houston's not going to be one of those teams where it's like, we're going to throw 57 times and only run the ball 10. Even last year with the mix mash of ugly running back situation, they still had some balance to their offense, because you don't want Davis Mills throwing the ball 40 times. So I think Damian Pierce at 49.5, that's, first of all, that's an easy smash if Leonard is out.
Right.
I have a little trepidation, of course, if Leonard is in there. And then maybe you can play the Travis Etienne over instead. If you go Etienne in your lineup and Etienne for the over. And the reason I keep saying Etienne is because James Robinson sitting here coming back first game from the Achilles, which everybody wants to harp all over Cam Akers. He's going to be questionable for his. And everybody's like, oh, James Robinson. I don't think James Robinson is going to see that many touches in week one.
Right. Yeah. I think you're totally right. That's the ETN one is one I want to take a deeper look at, but I really like that call. So let's keep this thing moving. But before we move on to the wide receiver position, just wanted to remind everyone we have a premium content version of an email newsletter that I wanted to talk to you guys about quickly. Check out the link in the description for more details. I will say this: if you're, trying to figure out if you want to take that plunge, we do have a 7-day trial. It's completely risk-free. If you don't get literally 10x the value of what you're paying every month, you can just cancel after those 7 days. No questions asked. I'm not sure how long, I guess I'm going to run that special. So make sure you check it out this week. If you like the PrizePicks angle, we'll have that stuff. We have a lot of DFS stuff, a lot of stuff for the Thursday night football, Sunday night football, Monday night football, showdown slates as well, if you're into that. But let's talk through some wide receivers here, Jake. And Michael Pittman, 5,500 against Houston. Like, wow. Go ahead. But that's wild.
Well, I think you just said it. It's like, wow, like what the hell is
I had to
what did
triple check that price before we started that was correct, because that is
like, are you
insane.
sure, Jake? Did you want to double check that you didn't write that down wrong? Like,
Yeah.
yes, when you're scrolling down and you're looking for cheaper options, let's just mention the fact that Jameson Williams for $100 more is sitting there. He doesn't play. He doesn't. He's on the pup, and they have him $100 more. I love some Robert Woods this year, $100 more. He's in line with Devontae Smith at 5,500, 100 more than Adam Thielen, and DeAndre Hopkins is suspended. I know they set this prices long ago, but
This is the
what
one where
did they?
DraftKings is like, let's get some people in. They can build some cool lineups. We'll just get them to like be able to build these like stud type of line. Like we see this around like the Super Bowl and like some of these like Thanksgiving. Like the pricing's always a little bit softer. Like that has to be what's going on here, because that's pretty egregious price.
This just that's what it's got to be. That's got to be like we're gonna try and mess around and get some people's attention, because Michael Pitt, like top 15 wide receiver already last year, or 15 to 20 range. And now you go from the quarterback upgrade of Wentz to Matt Ryan. He's in another year of development, and just the look, he's the number one in a great offense where you got to pick your poison in this offense. And we already saw what it did last year with Carson Wentz and Michael Pittman. So yes, this is your free square at wide receiver. I hate to use that terminology again, but this is your free square. Just put him in. It's 5,500. Work the rest of your lineup around this, and then go from there.
And at that price, I would be shocked if he's not the highest owned wide receiver, but it does kind of let you do a lot more with the rest of your lineup. We do like the PrizePicks line of 65.5 receiving yards. So we're definitely hammering the over on that one. But let's talk about one that's probably a little bit more interesting. And we kind of alluded to it earlier, but Amon-Ra St. Brown, 6,100 on DraftKings versus Philly. So if you are running out Hurts stacks or Hurts naked, Amon-Ra on the other side certainly makes a ton of sense. But tell us why you like Amon-Ra.
Yeah, it basically bring back with Hurts and AJ Brown. If you're playing that way, I'm leaning that way. Amon-Ra St. Brown for seasonal, I have some concerns once Jameson Williams gets back, because last year with Amon-Ra St. Brown, when he had that run, he had no Hawkinson for part of it, banged up Hawkinson. DJ Chark's now on this team. DeAndre Swift was in and out of the lineup. There's a lot of factors. Like St. Brown just had all the volume. It was basically like a Terry McLaurin situation for them. It's just pepper. I mean, look at it, 10 plus targets.
Right.
While I have long-term concerns of how this plays out, I'm not so concerned until Jameson Williams gets back. And if you see that the trust that he has with Jared Goff, and everybody wants to make the comparison, oh, he's going to be Cooper Kupp to Jared Goff, and like let's not go that crazy. But at the same time, even if he's 70% of Cooper Kupp, it's a freaking ridiculous number. So probably not 10, 11, 12 targets every single week. But if you get 6, 7, 8, even 9 targets, those are guys we're usually targeting in general, let alone the fact that he's still not even in the 7,000 range, 6,100. And he makes sense as your comeback if you're going to go with the Hurts and Jalen or AJ Brown situation. So I think that the volume alone is going to have him in play every single week until he gets to 7,000, honestly.
Yep, he's the number 2 player in terms of optimal rate on Run the Sims this week. So you're in lockstep over there with the Sims. So love to hear that. If you've never seen Run the Sims before, we're basically simulating the slate 10,000 times based on pricing and all of the other projections that are going into this, and it spits out with basically what those optimal players, which optimal lineup percentage they would be in. So love that. Let's keep this thing moving. I guess I buried the lead. We will be building a DraftKings lineup at the end. I think most people that have been watching this throughout the years know that we are building lineups for you guys, but we'll keep that to the end of the show so that you guys stick around. I don't want you leaving. So tight end. Let's talk about Zach Ertz, 4,400 against Kansas City. This Kansas City and Arizona game, I do think is going to be pretty popular, and we can talk a little bit about Irv Smith as well if you want to go a little bit cheaper at 3,400 against Green Bay at home.
Yeah, there's 2 reasons I brought in Irv, is because we don't know what Ertz's situation is 100%. But if he's out there, we saw the numbers. Actually, just real quick version of it. If everybody didn't check last year, as soon as Hopkins, forget when Hopkins went down. Let's just talk Zach Ertz when he came to the Cardinals. He was a top 5 tight end when he came to the Cardinals. And then he was even better than that with no Hopkins. And this offense changes a little bit. Of course, Kyler Murray wasn't as good, but we saw the improvement for James Conner because they needed the other options. And Marquise Brown's here now, but he's not DeAndre Hopkins. And if anything, he's going to be spending a little bit even more time downfield than Hopkins. It's not like Hopkins can't play downfield. We all know that. He's a top 5 pure talent if he's still anything of what he used to be. But Ertz is just going to eat eat underneath with Kyler Murray in this offense when there is no Hopkins. So I think that if out there, and this is your way to get a piece of this game, is maybe this is the only piece you take, and you can kind of get your toe into this game without it going crazy, as you mentioned, because it's very, very popular and for good reason.
Mhm.
If you can't, Ertz is out, or if you just don't want to, if you want to just fade this game altogether and say, I'm going to go elsewhere. I love some Irv Smith. I think Irv Smith, everybody's focus for Kevin O'Connell and opening up this offense and more 3 wide and KJ Osborne. And they traded for Jalen Rayleigh. It's like, how about Big Irv? People forgot how Irv Smith that second year was starting to make some noise. And everybody's like, ooh, he's turning into a breakout tight end. And then the year after that was like, okay, he's going to be a big threat in the NFL. Irv Smith is a matchup problem. I think he's better as a matchup pure receiver than like Evan Ingram, who is a matchup problem. He can't hold on to the ball too much. But if Irv Smith is healthy, which is what they're saying, he's ready for week 1, I don't know that the third option is necessarily going to always be the wide receiver. And in a game against Green Bay, who has the corners but struggled a bit with tight ends last year, I think Irv Smith is like, if all the focus is going to be on trying to limit, because you're not stopping Justin Jefferson, but limit him with Alexander and the rest, Irv Smith, he's going to take advantage of that situation. So Irv Smith at 3,400, I think, is an amazing play.
Totally. I'm in on both these guys. I like the Zach Ertz in particular call on DraftKings. Obviously, it doesn't matter if we're getting a lot after the catch. If he catches 6-7 balls, like at that price tag, he's a fantastic play. Irv Smith, like just getting access to that game, I think is going to be huge. And you do get that cheap price tag. I don't know, these Green Bay, Minnesota games, I've been to enough of them to where it can kind of go either way. We saw the shootout last year, but we've also seen some really gross Packers and Vikings games. So that's going to be one of those ones that we have to get right. It's one of those games we're going to talk through with Reeves this week as well. So make sure you check out that video if you want to hear a little bit more in-depth Packers Vikings talk. But let's touch on defense very quickly. Cincinnati 3,600 against Pittsburgh. This one seems straightforward to me, but tell us why that's the defense that you're going to be locking into kind of these optimal type of builds.
Yeah, if you can get up to the Bengals defense against Pittsburgh and Mitch Trubisky, look, we know what happens with Mitch Trubisky. Now, this is coming from somebody who wrote an article that said for fantasy purposes for Deontay Johnson and the rest, that Trubisky's not a downgrade from the past 3 years of Ben Roethlisberger. But the biggest thing is that's in the passing area where they're catching balls and that kind of product. On the flip side, the turnover machine that Trubisky can still be is what we're looking for here. Sacks, turnovers, that's what I want potential for. And I want potential. Like I target defenses, and you know this, Joe, is it's the same thing when I talk with Pat Mayo, is I want to look for defenses that have the opportunity to run the score up so they're forcing the other team to pass more and can get after the quarterback for a quarterback who's potentially turnover prone. Trubisky. Yep. I just spelled out Trubisky for you. And I spelled out a game where I don't think the Steelers team defense or offense is that great anymore. I would take their offense more. Actually, it's very much like the Lions. I'm very concerned that their defense isn't going to be able to do a lick to stop the Bengals this week, even though it's divisional and I know divisional games, all that type of stuff. I just don't know they can do anything to stop the Bengals. And if so, the Bengals defense is taking another step forward. Saw some really nice flashes last year. So I do love the Bengals. If you can't get to them, I know a lot of people are dropping $100 to go to the Titans against the Giants. I think they're in play as well, but I'm dropping way further. And this is the hint I was talking about before. I think the Jaguars defense has a lot of pieces that they've been building those pieces over the past couple of years. And the Jaguars have this mystique of, the Urban Meyer and how much of a mess they've been for years. But that's a team that had a sneaky defense last year at times. And you go to Carson Wentz. Now, granted, he doesn't throw very many turnovers or interceptions, but he does sometimes take sacks. That offensive line looks, it's had a lot of issues so far already. I don't want to say it's bottom 5, but it looks like it has some issues. If they can get after Carson Wentz and potentially get 1 or 2 turnovers, get some sacks into that game, I think the Jaguars are a sneaky one. And I think their offense is good enough. And again, going back to the Commanders' defense, not very good right now. I think they could actually turn out to be a score where they're getting to the 20s and potentially 30s, and then all of a sudden Carson Wentz is starting to panic a little bit.
Yep, love the Jaguars call. As of now, at this recording, they're projecting for sub 5% ownership, so definitely think the ceiling is still there. And our boy TJ Hernandez on the GPP video, spoiler alert, that is his GPP defense of the week. So we'll talk a little bit more about some GPP plays with TJ later on. We're actually going to have JM to win every other week in that segment. Just to give you guys a little bit teaser. Love JM, love TJ. But let's build the DraftKings lineup here, Jake. There's going to be no listener league for now. Maybe we'll get one of those things going. But doing some DraftKings builds here this year. So this will be, let's just say, for a smaller field tournament like we like to play, Jake, something that's smaller than 500 people. So we're probably going to be stacking a little bit more for something like this. But in terms of, it is locks of the week. So who we jamming in here first, Jake? You always have a little bit of a different approach to how we build it than some of the GPP bros out there.
Let's just start with the Hurts AJ Brown.
Love it.
I mean, I do not want to get away from Jalen Hurts this week. I'm going down with that one.
Do we want to bring it back with your boy Amon-Ra?
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown. That'll be the trio. I'm going to pretty much start most of my lineups with that.
Okay, I like that. So as of now, we still have a ton of salary to work with. If we can find, if we do choose one of your values, I think we're in really good shape here.
Well, let's slam in Michael Pittman.
I was just going to say 5,500 for Pittman. Easy call there. So I would imagine decent amount of chalk so far, which definitely not the end of the world. I think that we still have in our back pocket Jaguars defense if we want to get a little bit weird there. But what are we doing at the running back position with this team, you think?
So that's you know what, let's save that. I'm gonna come back. You said I always do things a little bit different, a little bit weird. This week
I should give you the keys here.
Yeah, let's make running back last. Let's put in Jaguars. Let's put in Irv, and get a little bit different here. And then now let's come to running back. See, I want to go high
now, though.
Yeah, I want to go high at flex. So I really have a good feeling about Chase this week too against Pittsburgh.
Nice. So instead of going the Mixon route, we could go
Chase. And what is that? So 6,100 at running back.
Let's see. Yeah, so about 6,100 the rest of the way. Yep.
So what if the one running back I didn't bring up as well that I really like is trying to figure out Green Bay. I think Aaron Jones could catch a ton of balls. I think he could fall into the Austin Eckler. Yes.
If you did go with Jones, obviously we have the Irv Smith mini stack there, and then 5,500. That was enough to get your boy Damien in there, right?
No, Damian Pierce is 56.
56. So you're 100 away. Yep.
Isn't
it? Yep.
Yeah. Or ETN is 56. Where's Damien?
Oh yeah,
Pierce?
we already talked through this. So we got tons of salary then if you did want to go him. So if we
Pierce
went Pierce 4,800, you got 700 left. Does that get you to
the
Bengals? Not quite.
It gets you to the Packers, Eagles, the Chiefs, Cardinals. I don't want any of those defenses.
Yeah, 5,500 is kind of a weird range if you wanted to go that direction. Honestly, Chase Edmonds at 5,200.
Keeps you 100 away from ETN, and then you're into the Stevenson, Breece Hall, Edwards-Helaire, Elijah Mitchell. Ooh. Call me. You know what? For right now, I got all my receptions. I have so many receptions on this team.
You do.
Okay, go Elijah Mitchell.
Mitchell.
I just off chalked it. I took my chalk away, and look. Here's what I'll say about Elijah Mitchell. This is, again, of course, this is Thursday when we're talking, so there's still time. If he is truly 100% from week one, that stretch when he ran 20, 27, 21, 20, 20, 23, like that was while Deebo Samuel was getting his carries. That's the Deebo Samuel started in week 10 or 11, and that's when Elijah Mitchell started with those 20s. Now, granted, Trey Lance is that quarterback, so that could take some of it away, but you want to talk about a game where you're sitting there in the second half just running out the clock on somebody?
That's true.
I think Mitchell could be in play. I don't love it, but I definitely let's take a step back real quick. What if we swap Aaron Jones for Saquon Barkley against Tennessee?
6,100. That gets us 700 more. So if we took Mitchell out, that gives us Montgomery, Gibson at 5,800.
Do you like Barkley ETN or do you like Mitchell Aaron Jones?
I think I'm probably on the Aaron Jones-Mitchell side, just because I think that, especially earlier in the year, it's going to be like just A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones until Aaron Rodgers decides who he wants to trust. And if we got no Allen Lazard, again, I think that game could just be a ton of dump-offs to the running backs. So, yeah, I think that the Aaron Jones call is interesting because normally he feels a little bit overpriced for his usage, but on DraftKings in particular, the type of usage he's going to get, and he's kind of right around that same range as Alvin Kamara. So yeah,
You know
I
what you
think I
could
prefer.
do?
What's that?
If you did Barkley, Aaron Jones, and took out Jamar Chase, you open yourself up to Najee Harris, Brandon Cooks.
That's true.
Some
Chase kind of
interesting.
handicaps a little bit there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could go
Let's do-
the Brandon Cooks mini with Pittman. So we've got a bunch of
There you
options
go.
for people here.
Let's do
All right.
that. I like the Brandon Cooks with Pittman and then the Barkley Jones.